Hey, you two are the motioners tonight.
I second that.
Okay.
He'll motion, I second.
Okay.
There it is. Figure out, which, when you need the ordinance number and numbers and stuff like that, so that's why.
Well, if it says, that we're.
Welcome, everyone, to North Ogden City Council. The meeting now will come to order. We remind you to turn your cell phones off or on mute, including myself. We'll begin the meeting by an invocation by Councilman Blake Severing, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance by Henry Turner, a local Boy Scout.
Heavenly Father, we are grateful to be able to assemble under such favorable circumstances, grateful to live in such an incredible area. We're grateful that we can assemble tonight and pray that decisions rendered would be appropriate for the community and for the best benefit of the citizens whom we love and appreciate. We also pray that there might be civility and kindness evident tonight as well. We give thanks for our many blessings, and we pray for this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Henry. Our first item is our consent agenda, discussion or action to consider the minutes from March 13th, 2018.
You gotta make a motion, dude.
I move that we accept the City Council meeting minutes for March 13, 2018.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we have approved the minutes from our March 13th City Council meeting. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. I'll now turn the meeting over for public comment.
Can I say something?
Please come to the podium and state your name and your address.
Charles Wright, 2634 North, 700 East. I moved to that home about 12 years ago. As I hope you all know, every once in a while we have terrific windstorms coming through. And when I first got there, it used to blow the garbage can and the recycling can over. Then I would spend hours picking things up. So I made a decision, and for the last 12 years, I have been bagging my recycled stuff, so if anything happens, it doesn't go all over my neighbors and my land. A couple of weeks back, my wife reads in the paper that the recycle should not be in bags. It has to be thrown in there. So dutifully, we changed our operation. And then about 2 weeks ago, the wind was blowing pretty hard, and I went out to put something in the recycle bin and spent a half an hour picking up papers from all over the place because it caught them and blew them. I do not understand why we can't bag the recycled stuff so when the wind does blow, it stays in the container and not over my and my neighbor's lawns. That's my main concern. The only other concern I have is I live on 700, and I would like to see the police there more often. They got a sign that says 25 miles an hour, but you wouldn't believe it. You would think it was 55 miles an hour the way cars go speeding up that street. we've got kids living next door to me and across the street and what have you. And one of these days, it's not going to be too pleasant. So I don't know how to slow people down, especially on that street. Those are the two things I want to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have any solution regarding
Can I at least say why?
Mayor, if I could respond to the recycling thing. We can't bag it because the recycler won't accept it bagged. Those bags are not recyclable, and they're not wanting to pay the cost in labor for people to open those bags and then dispose of the bags properly. If it's in those bags, it just gets thrown into the regular trash and off to the landfill it goes. That's why we can't bag it. That's the long and the short of it, and I don't know of a solution.
Well, all I know is in everything I've read, it costs more to recycle things than it does to just throw it out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the way it is. Maybe our tax dollars could be spent better in a different way.
any other comments from the group? Then we'll proceed with our active agenda. Our first item on the program is, or on our agenda is welcoming our new city councilman, Ryan Barker, and he will be sworn in this evening. We'd welcome any family members who are here tonight to see that as well. Welcome the Scout Troop. So we'll turn our time over to our city recorder, Annette Spenlove.
Okay.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Ryan Barker,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Thank you.
Welcome.
You don't have to wear the tie.
We have a chair reserved for you up here.
We're gonna try to get everybody else converted.
Are you?
Word all the way down, push.
Push.
Did it work?
You look good in a suit.
You dressed the place up.
Thank you.
We're gonna try to get everybody in ties. Ryan,
Are you?
Not gonna happen, Blake.
even Cheryl.
No.
Not gonna happen. Blake.
Thanks
Three
for
of us there.
asking.
The mayor. Evan was gonna wear a tie next time.
He's gonna wear his suit now.
He is.
I tried to
No,
hold that.
did he?
Yeah. You're stepping on the curb.
We certainly want to welcome Ryan to our group here and look forward to serving with him. Our next item is presentation of the American Spirit Project Essay Scholarship Award. Our presenter will be John W. Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor Chug and City Council, for allowing us to talk about this subject for a few minutes and to make an award to a deserving member of the North Ogden Youth City Council. The American Spirit Project had its genesis in a newspaper article in March of 2009. The story was about a young soldier who was killed in Iraq. The article included a picture of the widow and their 6-year-old son. They were being handed a folded flag by an Army officer. That picture and that story was the inspiration to start the Freedom Essay Contest, which the North Ogden Kiwanis Club sponsored for 2 years. We worked with the Weber School District and offered this to 4th graders through 12th graders. In the 2 years, dozens of schools participated in the Weber School District, and several hundred students wrote essays. In that time, we also awarded over $8,000 in savings bonds, certificates of deposit, and cash to the winners of the essay. In 2012, I started the American Spirit Project. At first, for the first 6 years, we offered it as an essay contest, and the general subject was American Spirit, but each year we changed the theme of it. One year it might have been about soldiers and military, and the next year about first responders, and then different subjects that we felt made up the American spirit. This year we've changed direction, and we have offered scholarships to youth city councils, Weber High School graduates. There will also be a public contest in the Connections magazine and also in the Ogden Valley News. So tonight, we'll be awarding the very first American Spirit honoree to a member of the North Ogden Youth City Council. Let me just mention the future plans for this project. I'm very encouraged by how it's been accepted, and we hope next year to expand this to more youth city councils and more opportunities for the public to participate. So we'll just get down to business, and I'd like to call up a young lady. Let me just mention that the youth city councils, we gave them a set of guidelines to pick a winner, and they took it and ran from there, and they've selected their honoree tonight, and we'd like to present her with an award. And with me is Chris Batrick, the president of the North Ogden Kiwanis Club. And he's got the goodies in his hand, and so we're going to call up Naomi Elmer, if she would please come up. Sometimes we forget checks in ours.
Checks in the mail.
You want to stand up here, John? You want a picture with? Oh, that's out of
Oh, we'll surround you. Well, let me get one too. Hold on a second. I'm not used to these newfangled objects. Again. Naomi, did you want to say something? Did you want to give a little
So, what I did for my presentation, I just did a collage of all the service projects and all the groups I've been a part of. And so it's just awesome to be involved in such an awesome community. And yeah, thank you.
Congratulations, Naomi. We're very proud of you for receiving this award. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. The meeting will now be open as a public hearing to receive comments from the public regarding the declaration of surplus property that North Ogden City has at approximately 190 East, 2700 North, where the existing detention pond is located.
So, council, just for so you're aware as well as the audience members, that the piece we're talking about, I'm going to just zoom out a little bit, is this piece right here, the existing detention basin. It's about 6.6 acres. It's right across the street from Lee's, on 2700. It's the second biggest basin in the city right now. The largest is down on the south end of the city. It's called Mud Creek Basin. And this is the basin we're proposing we move to a new location so that this property could be utilized for commercial development and bring some tax dollars in where it's on that street frontage. So, any questions for me before? Okay. So then, yeah, it'd be time for the public to talk about it then.
Any scouts want to chime in? Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a discussion or action to declare a property at approximately 198 East, 2700 North, where the existing detention pond is located as surplus property. Presenter is John Call, our city administrator and attorney.
So, council, this will be the discussion about whether or not you want to declare it as surplus. And then also in your packet was a proposed purchase agreement that was included in your packet for this discussion item as well. And so first thing you'd need to do is decide if you wanted to declare it as surplus, and then we could talk about the purchase agreement if you were interested in doing that.
That two separate motions?
Yeah, there'd be two separate motions.
Mayor, I'd move that we declare the property located at approximately 190 East, 2700 North, where our existing detention pond is located as surplus property.
It's been moved by Councilman Swanson to declare the property 190 East, 2700 North, where the existing detention pond is located as surplus property. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Turner. Begin with a roll call vote. Councilwoman Stoker?
Yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes.
Councilman Parker?
Yes.
Councilman Severine?
Yes.
Councilman Turner?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And so, council, just on this agreement, there was one provision in it that I thought we should talk about before you, or at least I should bring up before you discussed it. It is, sorry, let me make sure I get to the right page. It is...
Did you make it any smaller?
Yes.
I can read it.
So it's this section, Section C, that talks about the detention basin work. So as you know, a portion of that detention basin is below grade as it approaches 2700, and as it gets to the south side, it actually in some parts is above grade. So there'll be some dirt moving that goes on. Under this agreement, it says that we would reimburse the developer for the cost to fill in the ground and make it essentially a commercially viable piece of property. That's not, I don't see an issue with that concept. I think, in fact, that was what Mayor Taylor had talked about in the past when he had talked to me about it. The issue I have is I don't believe that it was coming out. It was supposed to come out of CDA funds because it was, as you're aware, the CDA gets tax increment from projects like this that would then go to fund projects like filling in the basin, adding street lights, doing some of the beautification things in the area to make the commercial area a little bit prettier. And so that was one issue where I feel like it's better for the CDA to either pay to do the work itself or the CDA to be the reimbursing entity as opposed to the seller of the property. But in order to do that, then the CDA would need to enter into a separate agreement with the purchaser of the property as well, that upon approval of a project, the CDA would pay for it to be filled in, if that makes sense. So any other thoughts about this? This agreement would be helpful. I think you could approve it in concept with the understanding, like if you were going to take out this provision, with the understanding that it would, we don't have a legal description in this document. We do have one because we had an appraisal of the property. And just for everyone's information, since I didn't highlight this point, I believe So that the city would be selling the property for $1,638,727, which is about $250,000 an acre. And it looks like it's $5.70 a square foot, right, is what they would be buying it for. So, any questions or comments? Yeah.
Mayor. In section C, explain to me the buyer shall call, not that line. At closing, sellers shall deposit funds with the title company in an amount reasonably estimated by buyer to be 125% of the cost of performing the detention work.
So that's the idea that we would pay the money to an escrow agency and they would hold the money, and then once the land was filled in, the buyer could then draw on that money to pay the contractor who did the work, and then anything left over would come back to the city. But as I explained to the potential purchaser, that if it's the CDA money, it's not going to be money done at the time of closing, unless other than the CDA would fund that expense. I personally still like the idea that the CDA just agrees to pay our own contractor to do the work. I just think there's some wiggle room when you let people hire their own people to do the work. And it's likely to be a pretty substantial expense. I asked our engineer to put together some numbers, but it's likely to be $100,000 or something. It's a lot of dirt that's going to get moved around.
So, John, let me just ask, why is this in there?
So
is this a request of the person who wants to buy the property?
My understanding is it was a discussion topic between them and Mayor Taylor last year when they were talking about it.
I mean, this isn't a deal breaker for me, but my heartburn is they're buying the property as is. Why should we help to fix it for them? Just a thought, $100,000 sell it to them for $100,000 less and then fix it. Why should we participate in it? That's just one of my thoughts. I don't know if I like it. You were going to say something, Blake?
Well, I was just going to say, what's in the C? How much is in the CDA?
Nothing.
So the CDA will be triggered next year.
Okay.
So the tax dollars are start coming in next year, which it'd be good for a project like this to happen that first year, because then we get a 20 years of increment on it. But in full disclosure, this is the largest real estate transaction I've ever considered been a part of. And so it makes me nervous because it's a lot of money. Luckily, it's money coming to the city, not money going away from the city. So, but it's always concerning when there's a big numbers you're talking about.
I like Carl's idea. Let's drop the price $100,000 and the developer can take care of it himself.
Now, that was just a suggestion. I'm not saying we do that.
No, I think it untangles a whole lot of knots.
Just the fact that, when you go buy a piece of property, you buy a piece of property as it is, and you're responsible to fix it up. When we bought our lot, one didn't have a house on it, and after we put the house there, we had to fix the lot, and nobody paid us any money. Would have been nice,
So the only reason that the fund, it actually works in favor of the city in the sense that right now this is, Evan can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a stormwater asset, meaning that the property, all the money that comes from the asset will go into the stormwater fund and then can be used on stormwater projects. If the CDA was contributing money into it, that's not stormwater money, that's tax increment money that we're getting from the county, the school district, and the other entities who will be getting a reduced tax on this property for 20 years. So in theory, if you can reduce the price, but that means stormwater gets less money, and then we would use the CDA money on something else. We'd still have that money to spend, but.
Could we take that out of this agreement and put an addendum when we actually get an agreement together, that maybe they pay half or something, or you know what I mean?
I think my recommendation would be that we, as the city, not agree to pay for it, but that the CDA, which is done under the umbrella of the redevelopment agency, be the one that funds that portion. And I'm sure that the seller would, or the buyer would agree to some provision that says this agreement is contingent on the approval of those funds, so that they wouldn't be locked in if the RDA didn't approve that expenditure. So, if that makes sense.
I'm not ready to make a motion on it. I want to think about it more.
Any other discussion or questions?
And the other thing too, with this type of a provision, I mean, it would be really fine for the council to say, listen, we're on the same page. We think the price is right. We're headed in the right direction, but we just need to tweak. We've got a couple final language tweaks that we want you to approve before we approve the agreement. I mean, they are trying to get a project going, but you know, if we brought it back next week, I'm not sure it's the end of the world for them.
John, didn't we use the CDA a while back for something?
So the CDA fund, Evan could probably maybe tell us better. I'm trying to remember. Was it
Smith's?
What did the CDA do?
The facade on this plaza out here.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we used some on Hug Hess as well, or was that the RDA?
RDA was Hug Hess.
The RDA,
I think you're right. We use it on out here, and
probably Ace Hardware as well. Then, so just so the council, especially the two new council members, we have a redevelopment agency that manages two areas: a community development area, or the CDA, and the redevelopment area, which is the RDA, which is confusing since RDA is used twice in the same entity. And historically, the CDA doesn't have money, so the CDA has funded the facade but borrowed the money from the redevelopment area funds and will be paying it back when the tax increment starts for it. So.
tricky stuff.
Just so that I'm clear, so what you mentioned a moment ago about the stormwater fund. So if we use the CDA, the funds of which are intended for this kind of a deal, right, this kind of a project, if we use the CDA funds, then the water fund ends up with $100,000 more to use on water projects because we haven't lowered the price.
Right.
And then we're essentially spending through the CDA tax increment from the future as that comes in to fill that dirt in.
Right.
Correct? Okay, I like that.
But there's also, and let me try and confuse you further.
Please do.
Sorry.
It's not hard. I'm already there.
Good morning.
So you can spend CDA funds on anything that benefits the CDA area. So in theory, you could spend money on a project outside of the CDA area, like a community pond, like another detention pond, because it's making property in the community development area more valuable. And so you could reduce the amount, just sell it, and then you'd require the stormwater fund to put less money into the new pond because the CDA was paying it on that end. And and I shouldn't use this term, but it feels like a shell game. But the trouble is you can pay for it one way or the other. It's just a matter of what the council's preference is. The end result is probably going to be the same, where the CDA is contributing a substantial portion either to fill in the property or to dig the next hole. One way or the other, the CDA is going to pay some money.
Okay.
Confused?
No.
No, I got it. Cheryl's over here poking me. You got it.
I mean, if I get it, you guys have got to have it.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are we doing? Just strike subsection C and
That's what I would suggest, and bring it back with,
bring it,
I mean,
strike
to
that
me,
and
we're
then have
not-
it with the addendum,
All
or
we're
that the
doing is-
CDA will approve that?
All we're doing is agreeing on concept. We're not actually accepting this right
Well,
now.
So you could, in theory, accept this agreement as written. We'd give it to the contractor for his signature, and we'd be under contract to sell the property. If there's tweaks like this, I think it's a good idea to run it past them and just say, hey, here's the new proposed language. Are you okay with that? And if that's the case, then we could, at our next council meeting, do an RDA meeting at the same, at the end of the meeting and approve that component as well. We just want Evan to put together some budget numbers.
I don't want to put anybody on spot, but Blake's in real estate. Have you had a chance to read through this, and how do you feel about this agreement, or what's your thought on it?
I didn't have a chance to read this before we came in today.
Okay.
But I think what, I understood it better the second time when it was explained by John. So I'm okay with that.
Okay with what part of that?
I'm okay with the proposal for the 100,000 with the CDA, so.
So we would strike C
Uh-huh.
and then have the buyer come back to or a separate agreement with the CDA. Is that what we're talking about?
Sound like
Is
that's
that
what
what
we
you're-
needed to do with the
Yeah.
CDA. Right, John?
It would be CDA funds.
Don't confuse us any worse.
It would be a separate agreement pertaining to CDA funds. That's the way to keep it simple.
Thank you, Barrister.
That'd give me some.
I'm good with that. Come, bring it back next week.
Like I said, I wasn't ready to get my blessing yet anyway, so.
Okay.
When can you have the language out to us so we can look at it?
Thursday
That'd
would
be
be, and then I'll email it to you all individually so that you don't have to dig through the packet to find it. It'll just come. It is it's a 19-page document. The majority of it are signatures. Well, not the majority, but once you get down to past page 15, the last 4 pages are all signatures and stuff. So it's just a little light reading. 15 pages of super fine print.
Could you also send us a dissertation on the CDA RDA comparison?
I'll have Evan write that up for you. So
Send it to Cheryl first. She'll proofread.
But yeah, look for it about the same time you get the email for the packet. We'll send a separate email with this
Thursday
document
or Friday or something?
attached. It'd be Thursday, yeah. So, but other than that, I mean, is there any concerns about the price or anything like, I'm not a real estate person, so it seems to me like that area is about what land's been going for in North Ogden, raw land, so.
Could you send us a copy of the appraisal just for fun too?
Yep. Could do that as well.
More light reading.
Yeah.
Okay.
It seems there is a synergistic advantage to both of these properties. He owns one and we own the other.
Right, yeah, I mean, this developer had actually tried to buy the whole block. That didn't work out, but, right now he's got some plans together for how this is gonna mesh in with the rest of the property in the area, and, it was one of the previous and future mayor's goals was to get this project off the ground. And if you remember right, I believe Councilman Uri mentioned that he had vetted this buyer the last time they submitted an offer and said that he's the type of person who has the money to do it, so.
I
Got
thought
the
you said,
Uri stamp of approval.
I thought you said bedded instead of bedded. I'm like, even better.
Yeah, so if it sounds like the council is okay with, we'll just tweak that language in subsection C and then make sure that the buyer's okay, or that they're okay with it, and then put something together for final approval next week. Okay?
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'd like to hear your opinion.
So is this tabled or just?
Yeah,
I mean,
so we wouldn't take action on this one tonight, and we'll take it next week. Maybe, if the council's on board.
Okay, thank you for your discussion.
That's going to be more.
The Discussion or action to consider a resolution for the North Ogden City tentative budget for the fiscal year 2018 and 19. Our presenter will be Evan Nielsen, our finance director.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. John's pulling up a presentation up here that will guide our discussion. So tonight we are presenting the tentative budget. State law says that each city needs to have presented the tentative budget at the first council meeting in May. So that's tonight. And the expectation is to adopt the tentative budget. This is not the final budget, but it's the first draft. And I guess in our case, it's not really the first draft, but it's the first draft that will be adopted. And then we'll propose the final budget to be adopted in June. So we'll talk through the tentative budget a little bit. The first slide there is the budget calendar. I wanted to highlight some of what we've already done so that nobody feels like we're just adopting this without having had some serious discussions over it. Back in February, we had an introduction to the budget process and discussed a few high-level things related to the budget, some historical trends and data. March 20th, we had our first budget retreat that was focused on the governmental funds, and we spent several hours going over that, taking some priorities and direction from the council. April 3rd, we had our second budget retreat where we covered the city's utility funds and the other remaining funds that we hadn't covered up to that point. And then on April 10th, we had another discussion on the budget. So here we are on May 1st, which is our tentative budget approval. I'd like to, I guess while we're here, I'll also mention our plan is that we'll hold our public hearing for the final budget on June 5th. And then on June 12th, we will propose adoption of the final budget. So that gives us a little more than a month to finalize whatever we'd like to see happen in the budget so that we'll be ready to approve it on June 12th. Technically, we have to have it adopted by June 22nd, so we have a little bit of wiggle room there if we need more time. And then June 19th, we'll plan on adopting the revised fee schedule. So I'd like to, I put this slide in here just to show a mapping of the city's funds. The city operates its finances using various funds, and that definition up on top says a fund is a group of related accounts that is used to maintain control over resources that have been segregated for specific activities or objectives. And I mention this just to remind everyone that our finances are segregated, and the money that we receive for like the water utility fund goes to fund the operations of providing the water utility. And that's the same for the other utilities. We receive a lot of general fund revenue, and that money goes to fund general government services and projects, such as parks, recreation, police, streets, administration, and so forth. So it's somewhat complex the way that things are structured, but it's done in a way to ensure that money is used for its designated purpose. And just to support this, our finances are audited each year to ensure that we're running things in accordance with accounting standards. So there's that summary. Any questions on that? Okay. Staff report, and on the slide, I've made a list of several of the highlights for our tentative budget. These are primarily changes to the budget that were not in the previous fiscal year budget. And these are things that we've discussed in our budget retreats or subsequent council meetings. So we'll just go through this list, and if you have any questions on any of these items, we can stop and talk in more detail. So the tentative budget contains 1 new full-time police officer, 1 parks position is moving from part-time to full-time, the addition of a grant-funded victim advocate position, merit wage adjustments as discussed in our prior meetings, a market salary increase for lifeguards, 1 new full-time stormwater position, 1 new full-time water department position. I added this one to the slide that I had left out of the memo, and that's the Utah Retirement System benefits for permanent part-time employees. That was presented at the council meeting 2 weeks ago, I believe. We've included funding to support the redesigned vehicle replacement program, preliminary work on the 2600 North intersection project, preliminary work on the new storm water basin / community pond project, continued work on the Barker Park amphitheater, and this is partly funded through grants, ramp grants. Replacement of a playground at North Ogden Park, Phase 3 of the street lighting project on Washington Boulevard, our regular road maintenance budget, preliminary work on a new water reservoir, continuation of the sewer pipe relining project, and completion of the new solid waste storage building. So those are the main highlights, the kind of the big things that have been discussed and proposed and included in the tentative budget as outlined and as presented in the council packet. Any questions on any of those proposals? I wanted to mention as well, the legislature passed Senate Bill 235 this year, which is related to funding for the homeless problem. And this law affects our sales tax revenues. Part of this law requires that cities pay a percentage of sales tax revenues. There's a formula that calculates that. And our percentage is estimated to be approximately $35,000 per fiscal year. And so this would be sales tax revenue that is withheld before it's distributed to the city. So this law goes into effect in January of 2019. So the effect on our budget is about $17,700. That's because that's half of the fiscal year. So I looked at our sales tax estimates, and I feel comfortable leaving them where they are in spite of this new law. Partly because I think we have some wiggle room there, but also because the law has a provision in it that allows a city to refund its sales tax using redevelopment area dollars. Whether the council or the RDA board chooses to do that, it's an optional thing, but it's specifically allowed in the new law. So if we get into the fiscal year and decide, the sales tax revenues aren't as high as we were hoping, then we have that option that we can replace the missing sales tax dollars with RDA funds. So, do you have any thoughts about that or any questions? It's not something that I was really aware of as we were discussing the general fund budget initially. So I wanted to bring it up at this point so that you can all be aware of it. And we'll monitor the sales tax revenues as we go into the fiscal year. The next slide. John?
Oh, sorry.
Deep in thought. The next slide shows the utility rates that have been included in this tentative budget. When we discussed utility rates at our council retreat, we had proposed rates that would fully fund depreciation. We've talked quite a bit about depreciation and future asset repair and replacement. And we went into that meeting expecting that we wouldn't fully fund depreciation, but we wanted to show what those numbers would be. And the council requested that we program a utility rate increase no more than 10%. And so that's what we have done. We've included a rate increase totaling at $5.87 per month. $2.83 of that is for operations in the various utility funds. $3.04 is to cover depreciation in the water fund, the sewer fund, and the stormwater fund. As far as solid waste, we've had discussions about trash rates and recycling rates. We programmed into the budget to continue providing the recycling service as we have been doing, knowing that there was going to be more discussion. And so we're still open to your guidance on that, but we needed to have a tentative budget to present. I know that John has been working on collecting some public input on the recycling and garbage program, and I believe we'll be discussing that at a future council meeting in the near future. So the tentative budget includes the garbage and recycling program as we have been providing them, with an increase of 49 cents to the monthly base rate. We left the second trash can as it is, currently $19.27. So that's probably an item you'll want to talk about. We increased the second recycling can up to $5, where it's currently $2.65. So that's a brief explanation of what's currently programmed in the budget, and we're happy to take your input on that if you would like to request different options or changes to that. And this last slide is related to depreciation. Because we reduced the utility rates that had been presented initially, it means that we're not fully funding depreciation, and so I wanted to show you the dollar amounts that are unfunded. So you can see the budgeted column. We have to budget those numbers to be able to recognize the depreciation expense in each of those funds. And when we say, the dollar amounts that are funded, that basically means that's the dollar amount that's going to fund balance to pay for future asset repair and replacement. And then the unfunded amount is the rest of what we wish we could fund, I guess you would say. So, do you have questions on that? Does that make sense? In our discussions, we had presented to you the budgeted depreciation compared to what Lynn's model would call for. So these budgeted numbers in most cases are lower than what Lynn's model would say, because his numbers are based more on current or future costs. So So this shows, I think what the council was guiding or directing us to do was to increase our funding of depreciation, but not to bite off the whole thing all at once. So that's what we've attempted to do, and this is what is sort of still remaining, the funding gap, I guess you might say, to be able to fully fund depreciation. And as far as operations go, this doesn't necessarily affect operations, but it affects our ability to repair and replace assets going into the future. I feel like we did strike a pretty good balance between being wise about putting money toward repair and maintenance without causing an undue burden on ratepayers. So that's basically it. I guess one other thing I should mention, I included a spreadsheet in the packet that shows the changes that we've made to the budget since it was initially presented to the council. They're about 3 pages worth, so if you have any questions about any of those, we're happy to talk about them. I didn't think we would go through each one tonight because of time, but those are the changes that have been made since we've discussed those line items previously. So that's all I have to present. What we're asking for tonight is approval of a resolution adopting the tentative budget. And we did have a change. When we put the packet out, we were planning on adopting the final budget on June 5th, which is the same night as the public hearing. But since we put the packet out, it was suggested that we hold the public hearing on June 5th and then allow a little bit of time if there were any changes that the council wanted to make following the public hearing. So I felt like that was a good recommendation. We have a resolution for the city's budget, and then after the city council meeting, we're having an RDA meeting where the redevelopment agency will adopt their portion of the budget, which is the CDA fund and the RDA fund. And that will be done by a separate resolution of the North Ogden Redevelopment Agency Board.
Any questions or discussion? Yes.
A couple of them. One on the, if you go to the proposed utility rate increases, on the proposed second can, when we originally bumped that from $10 to, we essentially doubled it to $19.27, that was when recycling was high and we could recycle a whole lot more items than we can now. We did that ostensibly as a motivator, hopefully for people to recycle more and throw less into a second can. And with the change in the recycling, I'm wondering if it's wise that we keep that at $19.27. What would the budget impact be? In looking at the budget that you sent to us, it looks like we have a surplus of $151,844. Is that correct? The net total general fund.
In the general fund?
I'm just looking at the bottom in the packet that you sent us.
So the trash cans will only affect the solid waste fund.
Okay. So let's go back up to solid waste then.
So in the budget that I presented in the packet, each of the funds balances at zero. The column on the right side just shows the amount that the budget changed from the initially proposed budget to the tentative budget.
Right. So in the solid waste, what would the impact be if we reduce that second can, recognizing the limited ability that we have anymore to recycle items, which forces people to put more into the black cans?
In our previous council meeting, we had talked about the possibility of reducing it down to $10. And I'm trying to remember, I don't have let me see if I can pull that up. Hold on.
Just slid right past it.
So I can't seem to find it right off, but John, do you have the previous staff report that you could pull up, maybe from the website?
Let's see. The one that you gave out last week?
It was the one from it was the council meeting, the retreat. Let's see, which retreat was that? It's from the budget retreat on April 3rd. In those rates that we presented, we had reduced the second can to $10 and made adjustments in the base rate to make it possible. I don't remember.
It was right here?
Yes. So 1375. So that's an increase of $1.91. Part of that, though, was for depreciation, though. I think to give you a good answer, we're going to have to look into it. But basically, the idea is by reducing the cost of the second can, we have to make up for that by increasing the rate, the base rate, across the board. And reducing the second can by $10 is significant enough. It wouldn't, you're spreading that cost over a lot more accounts. So I just don't know what the number is. We'll have to crunch the numbers again.
I don't think that was depreciation. I think that was just.
Well, the 191 included depreciation in some amount. I'm just not sure what portion of that was depreciation.
Trash, we barely even raised it at all for depreciation at all. So.
Yeah, there was something in there because I took it.
What you've got for us now, the proposed trash rate is $12.33 with 49 cents for its all operations increase with no depreciation increase. So $12.33 from $13.75 is what? $1.40 something.
Yeah.
What is it?
$1.42.
$1.42. That would have been the depreciation. Does that sound right? Got that finance furrow going.
That's not all depreciation. The 142 would be the difference between dropping the cans from $20 to $10, and everybody else making that up. So you could actually add the 142 to the what's today's proposal 5.
That's right.
So we're proposing 1233.
No, but what are we proposing overall? $5.
Oh,
587.
587.
So you could basically add that $1.42 to that, right, Evan?
Well, part of the $1.42 is depreciation, and the rest would be. I just have to figure out what the amount of depreciation was that was included
I think
in
you're
that.
right. That's still a difference that would go over. You know, I mean, Phil, I appreciate what you're talking about here, but you know, and I said this in the meeting before. I've had 8 people in my house. We've only had 1 trash can, and we've been fine. And those people who have second trash cans, they pay extra for it. And I don't think requiring there's 700 people that have extra cans or something like that. Isn't that, you know, out of 6,000 homes? I think,
Is it only 600 or 700? I thought it was a couple thousand.
I thought it was only like 700.
Second can was about 600, wasn't it?
630 second cans.
You know, and so I just don't feel like that should be shared with everybody. You know, that's kind of my thought.
I was thinking it was a larger portion of our population.
At 10% of the homes.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I can agree with that.
Yes. Could you call my wife and tell me that somebody agreed with me? Oh, it's on YouTube.
I think we ought to be, as we talk about these utility rates, we ought to be clear that that rate is really not there anymore for an incentive to recycle, because we recognize that we can't recycle like we used to, and it's just the cost of having that can.
Some people believe recycling will come back, but you don't know. You have no idea.
Any other questions or discussions?
Is there a resolution number?
03-2018.
Phil.
That mean me?
Thanks.
I was thinking that Ryan and I were able to do this one.
Oh, yeah. What, the new guy?
Okay. We'll work through this. We make a motion that we propose the tentative budget resolution 03-2018 as presented by Evan.
Okay, we have a motion to approve resolution number 03-2018. Do you have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Councilman Severing. Any other discussion? Begin the voting with Councilman Swanson.
Yes.
Councilman Barker.
Yes.
Councilman Severing.
Yes.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mayor, does the council have any direction on that second garbage can? Do you want us to leave it? Do you want us to look at other possible rates? Okay. Okay.
We're good to go. The meeting now is open for public comment.
But I want to be first or anything. Susan Clements, 668 East, 3125 North. On the garbage can, the second garbage can, I've kind of noticed that a lot of people that have second garbage cans also have a small business in their home. Maybe they do hair, or they have some other small business, and so they use that garbage can for their business. And I think in that case, they really should pay as much as the first garbage can, or because they're going to write it off anyway. Do we know when we talked about having a public meeting on the recycling? Have we put anything together on that yet? Still in the works? Okay.
So gathering information.
Yes. And then when we've gathered that information, then we will have a big meeting. Okay, Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
John, didn't that survey go out today?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Steve Rasmussen, 1092 East, 3250 North. A few questions. First, I guess a comment on that second can. I don't really have a second business in my home, but I have 2 cans, and I'm one of those people that has 2 cans. And I've considered getting rid of one of those, and was going to go to a recycle one before and everything. In the long run, I don't know how people live with 1 can. If you have yard trimmings or other things that go on there, it's difficult for me. And we have a small family. I mean, I don't have 7 people in my family that, well, I do a lot more than that, and sometimes they contribute to what we put out there. But I think in the discussion, it would be nice to see a decrease in how much that rate would be. I understand the reason why it was raised and all of that, but a lot of that doesn't exist anymore. But on the other hand, I don't want my utility bill to go up any more than it has to. And it seems to me that if my utility bill is going to go up $5, that's a lot of money. I mean, to me it is. If you live on a fixed income in this city where you're retired and you've either got Social Security or some kind of a pension going on, nowadays, evidently, the economy maybe will break forward and things will start to say, okay, well, budgets can increase, so pensions can increase. But in the past, for the past 4 years, until this year, which was a small increase, my pension stayed exactly the same, but my expenses have continued to go up. So I am concerned about a $5 increase in the utility bill. I know we have to do stuff in the city. We have to raise money. I was in a lot of the discussions on funding depreciation and being ready for problems when they happen and stuff like that. I think we need to be careful about trying to fully fund depreciation ever, because I don't think there's enough money to be able to do that, because it all has to come out of the pockets of the citizens of North Ogden. And I know nobody wants their taxes raised and all of these other things, so we've said to ourselves, well, golly, we'll just raise fees. And we'll do the same thing, and people won't complain because we're not raising their taxes. But I think as stewards of our money, you guys need to be really careful about what you do with utility rates, because they do affect everybody. And maybe there is some way to say, well, let's do it partially out of some kind of tax increase, or partially out of fees, or whatever you do to balance that. But a $5 increase, I don't know that in the last several years I can remember when my utilities went up $5 in a year. So I am concerned about that, and I start to finalize the budget. The other question I had is, do we, or is it, or can it be public knowledge as to who the developer is for the property down on 2700 North? Or is that something that is secret until it sells, or is that, can that be made public knowledge?
So that's in the agreement. It is J.D. Mercer and Company is the entity. It says it's a Utah limited liability company. So that's, yeah.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to know who it was, just for my information. So thank you. That's my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen.
Close those blinds.
You don't have to leave, Carl. I'm not going to attack you. Kurt Child, 2695 North, 850 East. Couple comments about the cans. I have 2 cans. I have 2 cans, Carl, because I'm twice as big as you. I've been your size since the 3rd grade. Everything I use is more garbage. My comment on the recycle, get rid of it. My wife's on me all the time. I fill 2 cans. And I go through my garage can because everybody throws, and they throw stuff, and I go through it. My wife said, you got to rinse that. You got to wash that. I thought, you know what? Why, if I got to wash my garbage, why would I need it? So my opinion on I don't mind paying for the 2nd can. This gentleman here, I don't know who he is, but he pointed when they said yard debris. I think we really need to look at that waste, green waste we have, that benefits everybody in this city. Are they going to put lawn clippings in your garbage can? You bet they are. Everybody's not going to want one bag of lawn clippings up there, but that is getting so nitpicky that our garbage is going to increase because people are going to put more in there, especially if you have to separate everything you do to put in that green waste. It would have been nice if we could have taken some funds and bought a chipper. Doesn't have to be that massive thing you rented, and run that stuff through 2 or 3 times. I know that costs money, but it's a lot better for people to use, and a lot more people would use it. I don't understand why, if someone has a tractor, why they can't load that up with a tractor, why you have to shovel that into your trailer or your truck. Seems ridiculous. And then I have some other things, but I'll bring them up on that property on 27 when you talk about Denise's property on 850. That seems like that'd be a great piece to put Legacy 3. Seems to be what Rob Scott's pushing, or was pushing, to go next to my house on the Powell property. And then I'd like to know how much money we make on the dog park. We should have a fund out we should have a fund out our roof on parking tickets on the dog park. There is not a day I go up that road, there's not a parking violation there. Fire hydrant parked the wrong direction. Dogs not on leashes, have to stop, have to go around them. My neighbor's down there picking up dog crap out of his yard. 3 houses from the dog park. It's getting warm. People are walking to the dog park. If you do the city letter, one thing about, when people put their garbage cans close together, I don't know if you've ever been up and watched them, he has to push that garbage can over and then clamp on it. So I've watched him pick up my garbage can crooked, slam it in the truck. Oddball, the lid gets smashed. You might make a comment that people need to separate those cans so it's easy for them to pick up without. Now, the other day he set that can down, wouldn't have broken an egg. But I see my neighbors, and they got those cans right next to each other, and he has to slide those things apart, and it just does damage to the wheels, the lids. I know I've had mine repaired. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. What's your definition of temporary? That dog park was supposed to be temporary. Wasn't supposed to have any money spent on it. See the city down there putting the fence up because it's such a mud mess. And the other thing, I think that your sign needs to be changed. It says this park is closed at dusk. Talk to the neighbor that lives right next door. There's no reason for people to be in that park after dark. And your sign lets them stay there till after dark. The sign needs to be closed at dusk if you're going to keep it there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. If there's no other comments, we'll begin with the council. Councilman Turner, any comments for?
Believe it or not, not right now.
Okay. Councilman Severin?
No.
Councilman Barker?
Nope.
Councilman Swanson?
One quick thing. I was waiting for you to
I
look at me.
I wasn't looking at you.
I was waiting
I
for you to
wasn't
look at
going
me, Cheryl.
Okay.
I just want to let the council know I was going to send out an email tonight. I talked to, we've had a lot of discussion online. You may or may not have seen it about the trailhead at 2750 and Mountain Road. Well, it's technically not city property. There's a crazy kind of agreement. John, we won't go into that. It would take us well into the night to try to understand it. Anyway, long story short, it gets used a lot. So I spoke with Tiffany this week and with Dave about the possibility of getting some trash cans up there so that the litter that gets often thrown into the bushes and stuff there has somewhere to go. So Dave is working on that, and Tiffany is working on getting a porta potty up there for the summer months till winter comes and we get rid of that thing. It's $65 a month for the porta potty. It's delivered, it's serviced. There's a growing issue of natural use potties up there, the creosote bushes and such. So I think there's a sanitary reason for us to have a porta potty up there, as well as just making it more user friendly for that. So I'm hoping that there's no major concerns or problems with that. But Tiffany's working on getting the porta potty up there, and Dave is getting the cans up there. Cans will be taken care of. Porta potty will be serviced regularly, and that'll make a big difference, I think, for that trailhead.
I wondered about the porta potty things, but they're going to have to be one of those large ones, like what we have at Wadman Park.
Why would it have to be large?
Well, I just could see that where it's somewhat isolated over there, being tossed over, pushed over. It looks like the ones that are at Wadman Park, they can't be pushed over.
Okay, I'll
I think
bring
it would
that up.
depend on the size of that. I think that's because I know Greg Swift has mentioned that.
Yeah, Greg Smith.
Or Smith.
Yeah,
He's
Greg
mentioned that
Smith
quite a
and
bit.
several others. I think you can anchor those down too. They have a way to anchor them if you need to.
I think in that area, just for precaution.
Yeah.
You would need to do that.
I'll make contact with Tiffany. Any issues with us doing that?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
I think it's county property, right?
No, it's actually private property.
Well, it's I think it's in the city's name, but it's deed restricted. We can use it, but we can't put any structures on it.
We were to build on it, it has to go back, and
We have an easement to access up there, right?
So we actually own quite a bit of chunk of property heading straight east all the way up till you hit the forest. But then just south of that piece, there's some private property. So the property lines up there are a little confusing, and because they're straight lines and the fences and stuff up there aren't straight. So it's, if you stay kind of where that trail goes up and north, once it starts going more vertical, you'll be on city property. But if you go too far north too fast, you're on private property. And if you go south on the southeast side of the pit, you'll be on private property. So it's kind of a weird spot.
that's all I have.
Okay. Councilwoman Stoker?
I think it's a great idea too, but my concern is the garbage cans and the winds coming out of that canyon.
We talked about that. We're going to chain them down.
Okay, that's good to know.
What would be the possibility of using those concrete garbage cans up there?
Me and Tiffany talked about it. It's just a preference thing with her, depending on how much they want to go up and empty garbage cans and those kind of things. So I'll work it out with Tiffany, but maybe that's something a possibility we can do.
I get a 3-yard dumpster up there.
We worry about
Everything going in it.
the 3-yard
Yep.
dumpsters. Everywhere else is that we worry about everybody
Get mattresses and everything else.
time tires and
People use it as a general trash can.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. I don't have any items, Councilman.
Evan tried to do that to me today, and I said, no. No.
How about John Call?
So as Councilman Severing mentioned, the survey has gone up. We have had 184 people respond so far. We'll just go through them real quick so you can see them, but this is essentially the question is it worth it to pay $2 extra for recycling, or something less without recycling, a little less? And overwhelmingly so far the responses are people are in favor of recycling. And the way I read that is, if it's only going to be $2, then we'll pay for recycling. And I contrast that with the next question, which is, are you in favor of keeping the recycling program? And it's about half and half, where it seems to be that there's a large number of people who are saying, if it's too expensive, we don't want to pay for it. But I don't know. It's hard to know where that point is, because we only did a 4-question survey because we wanted people to be able to get through it quickly. But I think those two questions together show you that people are willing to pay something, but not an unlimited amount. The next one is the convenience factor, and about half the people say they want curbside recycling. They don't want a central location, and they just prefer it. Some people say that they just throw it in the trash, and then the other 25% said they'd go to local places. So, and then the last one is whether or not people would get that second garbage can. And half the city or half the respondents are saying they wouldn't use the second garbage can, but you can see the other half would. So some out of mere convenience, some of them because they need it. So, and it's just those 4 questions. There's other fill-in responses, and we'll provide those to the council at the end. I don't want to go too much slower because there's some email addresses that show up, and we tried to do that so that people could only fill the survey out once, so we can see if there's duplicates coming in. So,
where is this at?
There's a link to it on the city's Facebook page, Mayor Taylor's discussion Facebook page. The name has been changed if you haven't seen that, as well as the Public Works web page on the city website. And then in the Connection magazine, there's a link in the article about recycling to the Public Works web page. Then they can link to the survey. So,
what time did that go up on the Facebook pages?
I put it up this morning around 10.
Okay.
So we've had a pretty good response in the first. I want to say 60 people responded within the first 15 or 20 minutes. I mean, it was pretty quick. So, and it'd be good for as many people as can to take it, because we want everyone to respond. So.
I was a little concerned at the article in the Connection magazine about the glass in that picture, but the little fine print tells you that you're supposed to put that separate. But
if you want to recycle glass, you have to take it down to the 2nd Street ball fields or to the actual recyclers. But those 2nd Street ball fields, they have a bin there for glass. Still, right, Dave?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Could I make just one comment? Could you put a link to that on just the city website? Because I don't Facebook, I don't do a lot of those things, and things like that I would like to respond to. But if I go to the web page to see what's going on, city council. If it was there, I'd take it.
So it's on the Public Works page of the city web page. But we can try and link to it. We can try link to that page from the front as well, if we can. So.
For me.
And it's been up. Dave? Do you have a motion for adjournment?
I move that we adjourn from the city council meeting and then convene in our RDA meeting.
Okay, we've had a motion to adjourn from our City Council meeting and to reconvene in RDA. Second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Stoker. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll begin our RDA agenda. Discussion or action to consider a resolution for North Ogden City RDA budget for fiscal year 2018-2019. The presenter be Evan Nielsen, our finance director.
Thank you. So the RDA budget consists of two funds. First is the redevelopment fund, which pertains to the redevelopment area. The second is the community development area fund. So as John mentioned, the city has two separate redevelopment areas, and we have two funds in order to keep the money separate. The community development area fund is budgeted with 0 revenue and 0 expenditure. That's because we're not, at this point, planning to borrow any money from the RDA in fiscal year 19, and we're not planning to spend any money. We will plan on receiving money into the CDA the following fiscal year after we trigger that. So we'll look forward to seeing some revenues there and repaying the debt the CDA fund owes to the RDA fund. In the redevelopment fund, we have, $695,000 in projected revenues. As far as expenditures go, we are planning on $82,000 going toward the street lighting project, phase 3 of the Washington Boulevard street lighting project. We're planning on $303,477 going to the aquatic center. The redevelopment fund is the source for paying the debt payments on the aquatic center. So that's that dollar amount. We have $40,000 budgeted in off-site improvements. This is for beautification projects and other miscellaneous RDA projects that may come up. Yeah. And the remainder of that amount, the remainder of the fund is $269,523, which is put into a project reserve account. So as you know, in the past, we've used redevelopment funds for beautification, but also for contribution to major redevelopment projects, such as the Hug Hess building and other building improvements that businesses have. It's been used as an incentive for businesses to redevelop properties. And we don't have any of those in the budget right now. But if projects like those come up, then we would bring amendments to the board so that you could review those and approve them. So that's the summary of the RDA fund. Do you have any questions about that one? So we would propose approval of the resolution. It's similar to the last resolution, except this one is a resolution of the redevelopment agency board. And we're planning on a public hearing of the redevelopment agency on June 5th with final budget approval on June 12th.
Okay.
So this is just the tentative budget too?
Correct.
It doesn't say that on the note, so
It is the tentative budget. Maybe you could add that to your motion.
Okay, what's the resolution number?
It's RDA number 03-2018.
Okay, I'm going to give this one a try, all right?
You can do it.
I can do it. I move that we consider the resolution for the resolution number RDA 03-2018 for the fiscal year 2018-2019.
We have a motion for a resolution for the North Ogden City RDA budget for fiscal year 2018-2019, number 03-218. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Swenson. Voting will begin with Councilman Barker.
Yes.
I just got a comment.
Sorry.
It wasn't the motion. We need to have it say tentative budget. Is that correct?
Tentative.
Oh, you didn't say tentative
I
budget.
didn't say tentative, did I? Okay,
Just amend your motion to say tentative.
I amend my motion to also include the word tentative in that previous motion.
Second, agrees.
Okay, the motion has been amended to include the word tentative budget. Okay, we'll begin the voting with Councilman Barker,
Yes.
Councilman Severy,
Yes.
Councilman Turner,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker,
Yes.
Councilman Swanson.
Yes.
Motion passes. Any public comments regarding the RDA agenda?
Public is silent.
Move to close the public comments.
Do you have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Councilwoman Stoker,
Second.
second by Councilman Swanson. Meeting adjourned.
It's not right that a new councilman is here on the night that we get out.